today's talk is by Dr. Nancy Brown. That's up there too. And a little planning goes a long way towards safety. And Nancy is the Community Preparedness Program Manager for the Sonoma County Department of Emergency Management. She's originally from Southern California. She earned a master's degree at Cal State University and completed her PhD in emergency management at Massey University in Wellington, New Zealand. Nancy previously served as Emergency Preparedness Coordinator for the hotels at Disneyland Resort in Anaheim. And she worked on emergency response planning projects internationally for countries within the Southeast Asian community. Her long-term objectives include continued development of pragmatic ways to build disaster resilience that engage communities and businesses in a systemic way, resulting in a culture of resilience. So I welcome Nancy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all very much. So great to be here today. As he said, I'm with the Sonoma County Department of Emergency Management, and I look after community preparedness. And one of the first things I did when I got to the county is I looked at how preparedness was being done. It wasn't being done very much. There was not anybody specifically assigned to that part of disaster preparedness and response and recovery. There was nobody looking after preparedness at all. It was very response-focused organization. And so one of the first things I did was I said, we can't do this by ourselves. So we have 15 people in our department. Throughout the county, all first responders combined, there's about 1,000. We have 500,000 citizens in the community. It doesn't take a genius to see that it is not possible for first responders to take care of the whole community. That at some point we need community members who can and are able and have resources to look after themselves and to be prepared to look after themselves so that the resources that are available will be available to those people who plan fell through. They had a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, none of it worked out. They recently fell ill and hadn't planned for those things. They got trapped and couldn't get out. All of those things that we really need a first responder to take care of. But so it's really important to me that you understand how important you are to my end goals. That I can't do this without you. And one of the other pieces we really recognize is the importance of your entire community. So the people who live next door to you, the people who live across the street from you, all of these people in the community really are important to the overall goal, which is, and this is really our goal, that 100% of the people in Sonoma County are always safe. So the only way that really happens is because we have people who are looking out for each other so that they can fill in the blanks when plans go awry, so that they can support each other when they need additional help to get things done. One of the things we saw, how many of you have lived in the county since 2017? Okay, so a great majority of you. One of the things that we learned from that, and I was not in the county at that time, I came here in 2019, but one of the things we learned by looking at that situation and what went wrong was, most of the people who perished did not have any assistance from anybody living near them either. They were unable to take care of themselves. They had mobility disability, they had a number of different things going on, and they didn't have any support. They hadn't looked for it, nobody had offered it. They got very little warning, so that was a big piece too, that there wasn't a lot of warning in advance. But the capacity of all of us to look after all of us is really the only way we get to that lofty goal of 100%. Is that if each and every person who has a neighbor knows they can count on them, then we get to where we need to be, which is everybody's safe and everybody feels safe. And that's a big thing, right? Having been through 2017, 2019, the Kincaid, the Wall Bridge, the glass fires, the pandemic, we found out how really fragile our system is, that there's a lot of things that can go wrong, but if you have all of the base preparations and those types of things done, It's a very empowering thing because you know you've done what you can. Just before we started talking, I was talking about people who are less likely to prepare for emergencies are often the people who need most help. And the reason they're less likely to prepare, studies show, is because they can't figure out how to do it. So they're looking at it, they're saying, oh, you know what, there's no way I can get this equipment in my car by myself. There's no way I can do these things by myself, so I'm just not gonna think about it right now. Instead, I'm gonna focus on things I can affect, which makes perfect sense, but it leaves those more vulnerable people in a more precarious position. So part of my goal here today will be to give you as many great tips and ideas as I possibly can on how you can affect change and actually make sure that you're prepared and feel really good about the fact that you have a plan, you know what to do, and you're ready to go should you need to at a moment's notice, or should you need to stay home safely at a moment's notice, whatever the cause is. So just real quickly about our department. This department did not exist in 2017, and one of the things I think the board did right was create this department, because prior to that we had a couple of people, I think it was 2 full-time and a couple of part-time people that worked within fire and emergency services that were the emergency managers. That's always problematic because when you're trying to split resources among a certain department, it's very hard to allow resources for somebody who's just looking after something that might happen, as opposed to the firefighters who are looking after things that are happening every day. So it's very hard to get resources, and the emergency management system was definitely at fault in 2017 with regard to the way that they managed that incident and got resources quickly and got warnings out quickly, as you all know. So creating this department gives dedicated people who are doing all day long things like figuring out how to get you alerted quickly. Make sure that you know what they know. Make sure they know before they need to what they're gonna know. All those pieces. And then people like me who are looking after how can we make sure that you've done everything you can in advance of an emergency so that when it hits you, and we all know it never goes the way you think it's gonna go, it always goes some other wonky way. But when that disaster hits you, you're able to be flexible, react, and make good decisions to keep yourself and your family safe. So this program has myself, I have a part-time person, and we're getting ready to hire another full-time bilingual person also. This is one of the things I've just discussed with you, which is nothing's inevitable when it comes to disasters, and the way that you prepare in advance has everything to do with the way that disaster will disrupt your life. So there's all kinds of ways that you can affect that outcome for yourself. And all of that is under that great big umbrella of that word called resilience. That if you're resilient to disaster, so there's all kinds of resilience. You can be resilient mentally, you can be resilient in a lot of different ways. I'm talking specifically about if you're resilient to disaster, you've done all of the preparedness steps, and when that disaster hits, you have a plan, you move quickly, you limit the disruption, and you get to recovery faster and back to whatever the new normal looks like sooner. And we see that this works in communities all over the world. We saw a great juxtaposition in a big earthquake, War II, in 2011. A big earthquake in Haiti, I'm sure you all remember it. A big earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand. These were very similar earthquakes. Very disruptive, had a lot going on. Big, 7 giant earthquakes. But the big difference was Haiti is still recovering. They still have rubble. They still haven't figured out a new economic system. It's just very hard. They had virtually no preparedness in advance also. They had virtually no mitigation measures. New Zealand's a very different country because they're isolated and they're out in the middle of nowhere all by themselves. They already know nobody's coming because nobody can get there. So they've been very, very aggressive with regard to community preparedness, building standards, making sure they have everything on the island that they might need in an emergency. And they were clearing plots and getting rid of rubble within months of the disaster happening. So a very different thing and all about the way the community looks at it. The United States is somewhere in between there. So we're more likely now to think about what disaster looks like and how to prepare for it than we were before Katrina. But we're still not at that level where I would say New Zealand is, where pretty much everybody understands what to do. If I say, what do you do in an earthquake? They'll all say, drop cover and hold on, because they all know it. They're all learning it. What do you do if there's a tsunami? Turn around, don't drown, go for higher ground. I mean, they learn these things in school. They're all about it all the time. So here's what you can do. And it's pretty simple. It's not magic. We'll go into each of these things a little bit. The first one, of course, is stay informed. So we're talking about not only how you get alerts, but how you get information so that you know what's happening. The second thing is having a plan, and then having a kit, so supplies that you can take with you or have at home with you. So these are the things that I think are the important keys. Now here's the other thing that's super cool. You don't have to do it all. Every time you do one thing, you're that much better off. If you can only pick one thing on this list of things I talked to you today about and do it, you are now safer than you were before you got here today. So don't look at the list like I have to do it all. Look at the list like, what can I do right now? And let's do that first and see where we go from there. So it's important to understand that every step you take is one more thing that you've ticked and one more thing that won't go wrong. And that's really the important piece here. So let's talk about alerts. How many of you are signed up for SoCo Alert? And if you don't know, don't put your hand up. Okay, great. So this is the county's alerting system. In 2017, we had 4,000 people signed up for it. So even though they used SoCo Alert, there was very few people that actually received it because very few people were signed up for it. This has changed a lot. We now have access to all of PG&E's data. So people who get electricity or gas are also now in our system for SoCo Alerts. So we have, many hundreds of thousands of people now signed up for it. We do like to still ask people to sign up for it because that makes sure that we have the right phone number. That makes sure that we have the most current information. Very often people will turn their electricity on and live in the same house in the same place for the next 30 years. And they never change the phone number, even though they don't have a landline anymore. They only have a cell phone now. So it's important to us that you go ahead and sign up so that we make sure we have your correct data, but it's likely that you will get a SoCo alert in an emergency in any case. We do not use this alerting system for non-emergency things. So if in the past you had been signed up for something and you thought, oh, I'm so tired of getting these alerts over and over again, that's not what this does. From time to time in the last couple of years, we've had people call us and say, I haven't gotten an alert in a long time. I think there's something wrong with my phone. To which we have to tell them, we haven't sent an alert in a long time. Isn't that great? So we send these alerts out. We test the system a couple of times a year in different geographic areas. But other than that, we only send these out with life safety information, which means you need to know this to stay alive. So that's why you'll get a SoCo alert. We also have in the county now, which we did not have before, a NOAA weather radio. So this is a NOAA weather radio. It tells the weather. That's basically what it does. If you push this button, it'll tell you what the weather is in Sonoma County. The other thing that it does is it can provide an emergency alert sound for you. And this is important for a couple of reasons. One is, we found, and I'm sure you found, in a major emergency, cell phones don't always work. Sometimes the cell tower's down, sometimes electricity's out. There's a lot of reasons why, but cell phones do not always work. So this is a redundancy to that. This is a radio signal. So it's a single tower with its own backup power on the top of Sonoma Mountain. And then we can send a tone directly to this. See if I can do that for you. It's pretty loud, so if you're sensitive to loud noises. Whoop. And it also has with it, if you'd like, these devices. And they have, it's a pillow shaker. and as you saw, a strobe light. And these are particularly important for people who either are hard of hearing or people who can hear well with their hearing aids but take them out at night, which makes them, again, hard of hearing. Because this tone is a high-pitched tone. It's often not heard by people who don't hear well. So this is a really nice benefit if you or anybody in your family or other people that you know do have a problem with their hearing. This is a really good life safety device, especially in the middle of the night when you're asleep. And so this is a separate little piece. I have some pictures of these up here. This is something you can buy like on Amazon. From time to time, different agencies in the county have given them out. So if you live in Santa Rosa, you might have gotten a NOAA weather radio a few years ago. Or if you live in Windsor, you might have gotten one. So from time to time, different agencies get grants to distribute these in the community. But if you don't have one, and you think, one, that you might be hard of hearing, or two, that you have had your cell phone not work during emergencies in the past, this is a really good redundancy, especially for when you are asleep, which means you're not getting information any other way. You're not hearing cars, you don't have the TV on, nothing else is happening. Nixle is a system that is used, and it's not exactly an emergency alert system. It's more of an information system. So this is a system that's used primarily by law enforcement and fire agencies. Our department does not utilize this for alerts. This is utilized for information primarily. The sheriff utilizes Nixle when it's time to evacuate. They put evacuation warnings out on their Nixle system, in addition to the warning you would get through SoCo Alert and through the NOAA weather radio and other wireless emergency alert systems. So it's also a great system. It is a system that can get a little crowded, though. This is definitely one system where you can get far too many messages and think, why did I put this on my phone? So I do recommend that you actually go to nixle.com if you do want to sign up, or if you're already signed up. Because at nixle.com, when you sign up those preferences, you can say, I only want emergency alerts for this area. So then you won't get the pancake breakfast, you won't get a whole bunch of other things on your messaging, you'll only get those alerts. So you can customize that to get exactly what you want. And if you want pancake breakfast information, you can customize it for that as well. And then if you live in the city of Santa Rosa, the City of Santa Rosa Emergency Management Department recently changed from Nixle to Civic Alert. So Civic Alert is very similar to Nixle. You go to the webpage, you sign up for it, and then you get these additional informational things from City of Santa Rosa. All of these can give you information by your texting. They can also call your phone. It can also call your house phone as opposed to your cell phone. So they all have this capacity to give you messaging a few different ways. One of the things I'd like to share with you today is if you get a phone call from SoCo Alert, that's the phone number. What we know is that people don't answer their phones anymore because it's never for them. It's always something else. So please put this in your phone so that it says SoCo Alert with that phone number. So if you do get a call on that, you will know it's a SoCo Alert and you will answer it so you can hear the message and find out what's going on. Anybody need to take a picture of that before I change the slides? Yep, you got it.
Is it written in here?
It is not in there. I can also make sure Peter has it and he can put it in a newsletter or something if we need to.
Good idea.
So I'm going to leave that slide up for a minute. And what I'd like you to do right now is gathering in groups of 3 or 4, however it works in your row. I'd like you to have a discussion about 3 different things. First of all, have you received alerts? When you got the alert, did you understand what it meant? And the other one is, when you are in an emergency, how do you get information? So I'd like to give you guys about 4 minutes to just talk among yourselves in your row with those 3 questions. I can come back to this again in a minute if we need to. And just take a minute to just talk amongst yourselves about these 3 questions, and then we'll come back.
You can just say the 3 questions.
Sure, and they're up here also. Yep.
sheriff's cars drive by with two-ton sirens. You get the shake alert. That's for earthquake alerts. We've received a bunch of those. The shake alerts a week or two ago. We discovered we couldn't call them in bed. And you did well at rolling out of the bed and just laying next to it, which is probably fine. Supposed to get we could, you know, like if the dresser fell on top, it would still be. Well, what's in the closet? If you have big heavy things on the top shelf of the closet, I would say basically, if earthquakes are written out, get this type of furniture. It's hard for us to get under the bed. We get next to the bed anyway. We're such a small apartment that we're storing stuff under the bed.
Right. I would say that's like
There always used to be a big next to it. That's the furniture is next to it. Doorways kind of.
It is one story.
Nancy. Hi, Gary. That tells you where fires are. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but yeah, that tells you exactly where fires are. They listen to first responder networks over the ham radio, and then they get that information and put it into an app that tells you where fires are at the time and what the situation is with the fires. Yeah. All right, let's come back here. I have just want to spend a couple more minutes here because I'm kind of curious. First of all, how many of you have received alerts in the past? Is there anybody who didn't understand the alert, that was confused by what it said? Yeah. What was it about it that confused you? Perfect, thank you. And we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes, but thank you very much. Did anybody else have anything? Yeah.
I think it's along the same lines as that when we were alerted in 2017 or what about the fire coming, they said zones so-and-so and so-and-so need to evacuate. Well, we found out we weren't in any zone. We were like mist. We were a little tiny spot on the Santa Rosa map that didn't have a zone. So they fixed that for the next round of stuff, but that was really interesting.
Right, yeah.
So we hung out.
Right. Well, your neighbors on all sides were leaving. Okay, so after alerts, we're going to talk about having a kit. So what is in your go bag? How many of you have a go bag? How many of you haven't looked at your go bag in the last year? How many of you think the stuff in your go bag will last forever? And it's not uncommon that people tell us that they do not look at their go bag. But what normally happens is, as soon as we have an incident, then everybody wants to talk about what's in their go bag, and they're looking for supplies for it, which is not as helpful as having looked at it before the incident. So this is list, and you will find this list also on these green bags we passed out to you. So there's nothing magical about this list. You can find a list very similar to this, a few less or a few more items all over the internet. You can find them at FEMA, you can find them at Red Cross. It's your basic supplies that you need should you have to leave your home in a hurry for 3 days. I think the one thing that sometimes people miss is you need to be able to carry it. And everybody needs their own, because if you're trying to carry a bag for your family of 4, you can't carry it now. So everybody needs to have their own, whether they're little kids and it just has a change of clothes for them and some fruit gels and a box of juice and a toy. Everybody needs to have their own bag that they're responsible for to lighten the load and make sure that you can move quickly out the door. Some things that I think I would like to highlight for this group in particular: medications, all copies of prescriptions. So if you have pills that you're taking, and I'm sure most people do, you want to make sure, in addition to having that at least 3 days supply of that medication, you also have a copy of the prescription, so that if you do need to be away from home for a period of time a little bit longer, one of the things that we know for sure is disasters happen to everybody equally in a geographic area. So if you've evacuated, your pharmacist evacuated, the person who works in the pharmacy evacuated, all those people are gone. Your doctor's gone, they're all gone. So for you to get a copy of your prescription quickly and easily might not be simple, but if you have a copy of it with you, then it makes it easy for another pharmacist to understand what you need and help you out. So just having a copy of that is as important as having a few of those extra pills. Eyeglasses, hearing aids, the batteries for those. In a disaster, yes?
Is it useful for having those in like Google Drive that you can access on your phone, or are you going to have trouble accessing your phone sometimes?
You might. It's just as easy to just have a slip of paper. You know, you take a picture of it, you print it out, and you just put it in your go bag so that you have a slip of paper that actually shows it. I think the cloud is a great device, but I think actual pieces of paper are super helpful when it's hard to access the internet wherever you are for whatever reason it is, because the internet in that area is not working, because your cell phone's dying, a whole host of reasons why it can be hard to access the internet the minute you want to. Doesn't mean you won't be able to the next day or in a few hours, but how simple would it be if you just had a piece of paper somebody could look at with you? So pretty simple to solve that. The eyeglasses and hearing aids are really important for your capacity to understand what's happening. This is really important in a disaster. Situational awareness is everything. You need to know what's going on. You need to be able to hear what's happening. You need to be able to see what's happening. So making sure that you have your old prescription maybe in your go bag, that you have extra batteries, that you have, if you wear contacts, extra contacts, whatever that is, so that you can use all of your facilities to understand what's happening in an emergency is super important. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, someone suggested using a rolly suitcase, because I know that Anne cannot carry her own go bag.
Yep, and I think that's a great idea. Don't get trapped though. Sometimes when people say rolly suitcase, next thing you know, it's a big rolly suitcase, which they can't lift into the car. So
It has to fit in the overhead compartment.
there you go, yeah. It has to be something that's reasonable, that even if you had to struggle, you could indeed lift it up and put it in the car. So you want to be sure of that, and that's a great idea, especially for families that have a lot of different people with a lot of different capacities to have a roller.
Another thing is, we went through the go bag a couple of months ago, and a lot of the batteries are corroded.
Yep. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to keep your batteries in a device. So if you have an AM/FM radio in your go bag, which I think is a great idea, so you don't have to turn the car radio on, you don't want to keep the batteries in there. You want to keep them separate because they will tend to corrode. Also, if you keep your go bag somewhere warm, so if you keep it in your car, if you keep it, I keep mine in the trunk of my car in addition to having one at work. A lot of people keep it in their car so they don't have to get it out and go. But things like batteries don't do as well in the heat when your car's getting really hot and cool every day. So you need to be sure to check those things on a regular basis and make sure you change them. Yes?
And medication.
Yep.
Your medication can deteriorate if it's left in a hot car for a very long time.
Absolutely. One of the things we like to suggest to make it easy for you is that you just go ahead and check your go bag supplies every time you change the clock. So twice a year, you're moving the clocks for daylight savings time and back, and you can also just double check your go bag supplies at that same time. Any questions about go bag supplies? Yes?
You don't mention chargers for a cell phone and for things that you really do need to be functioning.
Yep, I think chargers are a great idea. And as I said, this is not an exhaustive list. This is a starter package. These are the things I think are the most important. But I think chargers are great. I think AM, FM radios are great. I think there's a lot of other great things. I think the real key thing is think about what you will need over that period of time and make sure you have that available. There's a lot of great little storage drives also that you can get that will hold everything that's on your computer. And you can have a little storage drive in there also that has all of your data on it already. So there's a lot of really good things. As I said, if you take a little Google around, you will see some great lists with lots of ideas of really important things that you'll go, oh yeah, I definitely need that one. So I want you to think about, though, if you don't have a go bag already, that's what these green bags are designed to help you with. So my suggestion is when you go home, you set it on the kitchen counter and leave it open sitting there. And every day, walk around your house and put one thing in there from that list. And you will have that list taken care of. You have 99% of this stuff in your house right now. You just don't have it all in one place. So if you don't need that green bag, I would love it if you would pass it on to a neighbor who you know might need some help with preparedness. And if you don't need to do that either, then you're welcome to just leave them and I'll take them back. But I think we've found that the hardest thing about putting together a go bag is just starting it. It's not hard to do. It's simple to do, and it's kind of fun. And the other thing about it, again, is once you have your go bag ready, your angst about evacuation drops 12% because now you know you have something ready to go when you need to go. There's another type of kit that we'd love to have you have, and that would be a shelter-in-place kit. This would be in case of an earthquake, primarily. Also, of course, during the pandemic, the first thing they asked was for everybody to shelter in place. So this is enough supplies in your home that you do not need to leave for 7 days. And this does not have to be a kit in a great big box somewhere. This can just be the amount of supplies you keep in your home. So my suggestion is don't get down to 1 can of green beans. Make sure you always have food in your cupboard that you could survive 7 days in your home without going out. That just means a deeper pantry of dry goods and canned goods. It means also, of course, making sure you have plenty of batteries for all of your flashlights and all of those other types of things. At socoemergency.org, we have a list of different things like this that I think you can take a look at and get a good idea of what that is. But great news, your go bag has 3 of the 7 days in it already. So you can use those 3 days and get 4 more days worth, and now you're at the very minimum. I would love to see people have 14 days worth of supplies because I think it's going to take them that long to get the roads in good shape to drive in an emergency of an earthquake, because that's going to be our major problem is the roadways are going to be hard to pass. So I think if people felt comfortable staying at home for 2 weeks, they'd be safer and everybody would be safer. So that could be like your long-term goal, and that's a lot of canned goods. But, and you may not have enough space for all of those things, but that would be my suggestion. And then I'd like us to just take a look one more time in groups and just talk about go bags for a minute. One is, of course, what's one thing, now that you've seen the list and you've heard some other things, what's one thing you think you definitely want to make sure you have in your go bag? And where would you keep your go bag? Where do you think the greatest place to keep it would be? And will you be able to carry it? So again, just a couple of minutes in groups.
So into Amazon,
Right, so they make small chargers that will have chargers. And then they make some that are a little bit bigger, the one that I have is a little bit bigger, and you can have, it's like a battery, it's basically an external battery. Yeah. Yeah, and they make them in a, yeah, well, you can get, like, the one that I have is about the size of a cell phone, and I charge my phone 6 times, so it's pretty handy. You can, I use it on vacation a lot because you're offering services without charging. Yeah, so you can find somewhere to charge it, and you're good to go for another 6 rounds.
They told us the last night that will not support
You can get it at Best Buy, you can get it on Amazon, yep. So look for external iPhone battery. It'll show it to you. Yep.
So one thing we need is we need to get the rolly suitcases out. Because you have one for each of us, you have
All right, folks, let's come back together. Thank you very much. Did anybody come up with something they think might be a little unique that they're going to put in their go bag?
bird food.
Bird food, excellent. And that's one thing you can't forget, and that is that your pets, they should probably have a go bag too. Yeah, you don't want to get down to the last can of cat food. You want to make sure you have a carrier that has the types of things in it that you would need. So whether it's poop bags, a leash, whatever it is you need to make sure that you can take your pet out and take care of them is really important. So let's talk about planning. You all have this guide. This was designed specifically to help people organize their thoughts around planning and make it a little simpler. So it's really designed as a fill-in-the-blanks guide to give you some ideas of things that you should do. I think key information, of course, medical history is important. Should you be unable to communicate, sometimes when we're upset and nervous, we don't think as straight as we'd like to, so if you have things written down, it makes it easier to communicate what's going on. It also looks at contacts, so who your emergency contacts are, and if you evacuate, where are you gonna go? How are you gonna get there? These types of things that I think are really important to think through in advance. One of the things I think you wanna look at is being sure that if you're going to need help, that you talk to your neighbors in advance and say, hey, here's my situation. I have a son who lives in Oakland. He might come and help us. If he can't get here, can you assist as well? So trying to get that together, I think, is important. I think the other thing I'd like to share with you is we do have a new system in the county called a temporary evacuation point. And when we order an evacuation, the first thing we announce, as opposed to a shelter, which takes us 12 to 14 hours to set up, we announced this temporary evacuation point, which is a pre-planned location for people who are evacuating to rally. If you have somebody in your neighborhood who needs help, who doesn't have a ride, but you don't really want to take him with you to your daughter's house in San Jose for 2 weeks, you may bring them to the temporary evacuation point, and the county would be happy to take care of them from there. So all we really need people to do is offer somebody a ride. They don't need to have responsibility for them. They don't need to take care of them. We'll have human services at the temporary evacuation point. We'll have medical assistance. We'll be able to help them communicate with their people. So a fairly simple ask in the community, just give somebody a ride to see us. You don't need to take care of them. Yep?
That part of it with getting out, I went by Highway 12, and that was a disaster. And they had us go to the fairgrounds, and that was another disaster.
Which instance was that?
You know, pardon?
In what event was that?
That was a fire. That was, trying to remember whether it was the tubs or the glass.
Yeah.
You know, and the traffic was unbearable, and now with all these new buildings, you know, our traffic is gonna be unbelievable.
It is, and I want to just give you a heads up on something. And so, not applying to if the fire starts in your backyard, but in general, when the Sheriff's Department and CAL FIRE are trying to figure out evacuation strategy, they have the information about how long it takes on congested Highway 12 to get people from point A to point B. They have that same information about Highway 1 and Highway 116. So when they're ordering an evacuation, you may say to yourself, the fire is nowhere near me. And the reason they're asking you now is because they know you can't get out in 35 minutes. They know it's going to take you an hour and 35 minutes to get out, or whatever that takes. So they're calculating that crowded highway into their time when they're able to, when there's enough time to be able to give you that heads up, which is their goal, of course, is to see the fire, know where it is, and move things very quickly towards keeping the people safe. The other thing, of course, that I think is important is to understand your evacuation zone. Does everybody know their evacuation zones? So this is the address you can go to on the web to get your evacuation zone. When we send out alerts, one of the things somebody said was they were confused about where to go. In 2017, CAL FIRE issued evacuations based on where the fire was. So the fire's here, and evacuation zone 1 is closest to the fire, and 2 is a little farther away, and then 3 and 4, and you get the idea. So then in the Kincaid fire, just 2 years later, CAL FIRE again draws a circle around the fire and says, now this is evacuation zone 1. Well, because people had a very good memory of their previous fire experience, they were like, no, that's not my evacuation zone. I'm in evacuation zone 3. CAL FIRE is saying I'm in evacuation zone 7 now. I don't understand what's going on. It created a lot of confusion. The other thing that creates confusion is when they give that information, they say zone 1 is north of this street and south of this street and east of this street and west of this street, which is super helpful if you know all 4 of those streets. If you don't know those streets, it doesn't give you any idea where it is. So the county got together and created this static evacuation zone map. It was first rolled out in the Walbridge fire, and then again in the Glass fire, and also most recently in the Point fire. We utilized this system. And basically, you can find out right now where your zone is. And it's going to be your zone, whether it's a flood, whether it's a chemical spill, whether it's a fire. It doesn't make any difference. This is now your zone. So when you get an alert on your phone and it says, we're evacuating East 2, which is a Santa Rosa specific place, which is where we are right now. We're in Santa Rosa East 2. Then you know, oh, that's me. This pertains to me. You don't need to go look it up. You don't need to go get any more information. You already know. So this is a super great way to make sure that you know what's going on when you get an alert. The other thing, of course, is leave early. Most of you will need a little extra time to get out. It's going to be a little slower. You have some mobility issues. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get out and get everything into the car and those types of things. You can leave when you're issued an evacuation warning. You do not have to wait for an evacuation order. You can leave just because you heard there's a fire somewhere and you think it's a good time to go visit your kids down in Orange County. So please, feel free to get ready and go early. You can A, avoid the traffic, and B, get somewhere safe and not be quite so concerned about your safety. It's much more difficult to get out when the evacuation order has been issued, because 99% of the people wait until they're ordered to leave. So if you leave early, you'll have a much quicker and easier time getting yourself out into safety. From wherever you go, you can continue to monitor the situation. You can just head over to the TEP, the temporary evacuation point, and just hang out there where you'll be able to get up-to-date information about what's going on. But I really always recommend people go ahead and leave early. There's nothing wrong with leaving early. Any questions about evacuations? One other thing I wanted to mention real quick, one of you mentioned to me that you have the, now I can't think of the name.
Watch duty.
Watch Duty app, thank you. Watch Duty is a great app. It gives you great information about fire. It can also be very triggering. Please make sure that you sign up for an area that will affect you, not the entire county. We have fires every single day, lots of them. You do not want all that fire information this time of year. That's more than anybody should be able to handle. So please do sign up for it because it will give you great information quickly about what's happening, and it will also tell you when that fire has been contained quickly, so you know that immediately. What they're basically doing is listening to first responders and getting that information that's vetted through the first responders out through this app, and it's a great tool also. But again, it can be very triggering, so use it wisely. Don't overuse it.
So
Yeah.
what distance away makes sense?
So if you looked at the evacuation map, I would say no more than 3 zones from where you are. Take a look at that, what that perimeter looks like. So your zone, the zone next to you, the zone next to that one, that's a pretty big circle.
Okay, so.
But if we're here, we don't need to know what's happening in Cloverdale right away, right? We don't need that immediately.
Or Healdsburg or Windsor?
Yeah, probably, well, maybe Windsor, maybe Windsor.
And I
Yep.
and I just happen to have Lake County on there because I have a relative, I have a
Fair
brother that
enough.
lives there. And it just so happened that I was able to even alert my cousin, when they just had the fire last week,
Nice.
because she didn't see it on her phone, and I called her and she evacuated. So,
Nice, and that is one nice
Yeah.
thing about that app. Anybody in the world, anywhere can load it,
Yeah.
and they can monitor what's happening in your neighborhood. So that's a nice piece for them as well, especially if they're one of your emergency contacts. I have a really short little video here for you. If I can get it to play, here we go. So you understand my theme now, right? Working together, everybody working together. And again, this is just something that's very important to me because this is how I'm going to make sure that I meet my goal of 100%, and I need your help to do that. And I need you to volunteer to do that in your neighborhood, and I need you to make sure that the neighbors on both sides of you are connected to you, so they can help you and you can help them. And this is really the key, is that you can either give somebody help or you need help. Figure out which one you are and fix that problem. So either offer help to somebody if you have the capacity, or find someone who can help you if you're going to need help in an emergency. And we will get to 100%. And we will all stay safe, and we will all feel comfortable living in probably one of the most beautiful counties in the United States, because we're ready and we know how to keep each other safe. Yes?
It's hard when you live in a senior community and the elevator goes out
Yes, it is.
and they don't have generators for that.
And very few people do, so that can be very challenging. And the people that run that organization need to understand how quickly they need to call the fire department to help people to come downstairs, because they need to be a priority with their local fire department to get people downstairs in an emergency.
But the only problem is that traffic won't let them come through.
Won't let who come through?
Fire departments.
Oh, they might.
They'll get there.
They'll get through. They'll get through. But and then of course you have some people that have more capacity than other people. And other ways you can think about, and I see that you have a walker, so obviously you have a mobility issue. What floor are you on?
Second,
The second floor, so you need to get down one set of stairs. It may be that you can find somebody in your building who can help you with that. Do you do any physical therapy or anything like that? Because there's physical therapists also often have some really good ways to strategize movement, and I don't want to give advice on it because I am not a physical therapist, but ways that you could move yourself potentially, but you would need help with your walker then, because when you get to the bottom of the stairs, you want your walker with you. So just trying to brainstorm with your neighbors what it is that you can do. If your neighborhood is interested, I'd be happy to come out and talk with you guys and get into the weeds on some of this stuff, and see if we can strategize solutions, because there's a lot of problems that are very hard to solve, and then there's some problems that if a few people get together, somebody can figure out the good answer.